Recap. What begins as quiet envy blossoms into action. Dyke's desire to escape his brother's shadow drives him to sever his sacred locks, breaking the spirit's promise and unleashing a curse upon Omugwe. The river darkens, crops wither, and a monstrous lion stalks the forest. When Chidi takes up the challenge to save the village, Dyke's envy leads him to betrayal, and Chidi is captured by outcasts. As one twin rises in the village's eyes, the other suffers in silence, their bond shattered. Part 3. Betrayal is a blade that cuts both ways. For Chidi it meant chains and captivity. For Dyke it was the weight of guilt growing heavier with each passing day. But in Omugwe the spirits watched, their judgment patient but certain. As darkness descended upon the village, the brothers' fractured bond became the key to either redemption or ruin. The night after Chidi was taken, the village of Omugwe was eerily silent. The forest, once alive with the hum of cicadas and the rustle of leaves, seemed to hold its breath. The river's murky flow carried whispers of unease, as if it knew the balance of Omugwe had been irrevocably disturbed. Dyke returned from the forest alone, his face pale and drawn. When questioned by the villagers, he claimed the lion had attacked, that Chidi had bravely confronted it and had not returned. His voice faltered, but the villagers, overwhelmed with grief and fear, accepted his account. Nkem collapsed at the news, her cries piercing the stillness of the night. "My son!" she wailed, clutching at the earth outside her hut. "Chidi, my brave boy." Akine held her, his own tears streaming silently down his face. They buried their faces in their hands, mourning a son they believed lost forever. The villagers held a solemn vigil for Chidi, gathering around the ancient baobab tree to light torches and sing songs of remembrance. They spoke of his bravery, his selflessness, his unwavering love for Omugwe. Yet, in the flickering firelight, Dyke stood apart, his head bowed, his fists clenched at his sides. The guilt was suffocating. Every glance from his parents, every whispered word from the villagers, felt like an accusation. Yet Dyke told himself that he had no choice, that Chidi's shadow was too large, that his betrayal was necessary to carve his own identity. But the weight of his lie grew heavier with each passing day. The rise of Dyke. In Chidi's absence, the village turned to Dyke. Though he lacked his brother's charisma, he stepped into the role with a quiet determination. He led hunting parties, organized defenses against the lion that still haunted the outskirts, and gained the trust of King Okeke. The king, impressed by Dyke's apparent resilience, summoned him to the palace. "You have shown great strength in these trying times," he said, his voice carrying the authority of a ruler. "Omugwe needs leaders like you. From this day forward, you shall serve as chief protector." The title came with privileges, a seat at the king's council, fine robes, and the respect of the villagers. Yet each accolade felt hollow to Dyke, his accomplishments tainted by the memory of Chidi's betrayed gaze. The villagers praised him, but their words carried an unspoken question: why did you return when Chidi did not? Despite his rising status, Dyke found himself growing more isolated. He avoided the village square, where whispers of his brother lingered like ghosts. He turned his focus inward, burying himself in his duties, hoping that his actions would drown out his guilt. Chidi's captivity. Far from Omugwe, deep within the cursed forest, Chidi was alive. The outcasts who had captured him were a ruthless band of exiles, cast out of their own villages for crimes ranging from theft to murder. They operated on the fringes of society, surviving by raiding settlements and ambushing travelers. Bound and beaten, Chidi was dragged to their hidden camp, a cluster of crude shelters hidden among the dense trees. The leader of the outcasts, a scarred man named Oba, looked at Chidi with disdain. "This is the great hunter of Omugwe," Oba sneered, circling Chidi like a predator. "Hardly seems worth the effort." Despite the pain and humiliation, Chidi held his head high. His body was battered, but his spirit remained unbroken. He refused to let the outcasts see his fear. Days turned into weeks, and Chidi endured the harsh conditions of captivity. He was forced to labor for the outcasts, fetching water, chopping wood, and enduring their taunts. Yet even in the darkest moments, the voice of the spirits whispered to him. "Your journey is not over," the voice said, steady and calm. "Endure, for your destiny lies beyond this trial." Chidi clung to those words, drawing strength from them. He observed his captors closely, learning their routines, their weaknesses. He listened to their conversations, piecing together their plans. In his heart, he knew that escape was his only option. The strain on Omugwe. Back in Omugwe, the effects of the curse continued to spread. The lion's roars echoed through the forest at night, sending chills down the spines of the villagers. Crops failed despite the rains, and livestock disappeared without a trace. The river, once the village's lifeblood, grew more polluted, its once crystal waters now dark and sluggish. The villagers began to lose hope. They turned to the elders seeking answers, but the wisdom of the ancestors seemed elusive. Some whispered that the curse had been brought upon them by Chidi's death, that the spirits were angered by his loss. Nkem, however, could not shake the feeling that her son was still alive. She dreamed of him often, seeing his face, hearing his voice. "He is out there," she told Akin one night, her voice trembling with conviction. "I know it." Akin sighed, his face etched with worry. "Even if he is Nkem, what can we do? The forest is cursed. The lion still roams. We are powerless against the spirit's will." But Nkem refused to give up. She began to leave offerings by the riverbank, bowls of fruit, coins, and herbs, praying for Chidi's safe return. Her faith was unshakable, even as the village descended further into despair. Dyke's dealings. Dyke, too, was haunted by Chidi's absence. He found no solace in his new position, the title of chief protector, a constant reminder of the brother he had betrayed. Each time he stood in the palace, each time he spoke to the king, he felt the weight of his lie pressing down on him. In secret, he continued to deal with the outcasts. He met them at the forest's edge under cover of darkness, bringing them supplies in exchange for their silence. But his dealings were not without risk. The outcasts grew bolder, demanding more each time, threatening to reveal the truth if Dyke did not comply. "They know," Dyke whispered to himself one night, pacing in his hut. "The spirits know. The village will know." The fear of exposure drove him to paranoia. He began to see shadows where there were none, to hear whispers in the wind that spoke his name. The once confident young man was now a shell of himself, his ambition poisoned by guilt. The stranger's revelation. One fateful night, as Dyke sat alone in his hut, a knock came at the door. He opened it to find a tall, hooded stranger standing in the moonlight. The man's face was partially obscured, but his eyes gleamed with an unsettling intensity. "Who are you?" Dyke demanded, gripping the doorframe. The stranger stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "I bring news from the north. Your brother is alive." Dyke's heart stopped. The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. "Alive?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. The stranger nodded. "He is held captive by the outcasts who dwell beyond the river. I can lead you to him, but you must come alone." Dyke's mind raced. If Chidi was alive, everything he had built, his position, his power, his fragile trust, was at risk. Yet, a part of him felt an overwhelming relief at the news. The guilt he had carried for so long now had a chance to be confronted. "I will go," he said finally, his voice trembling. "Take me to him." Fate has dealt its hand, and the brothers are now on opposite paths. But the spirits are watching, and redemption may yet be possible. Can the bond of blood be restored? Find out in Part 4, Redemption and Legacy. If you've been captivated by this tale, give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a chapter of this incredible journey. Let us know in the comments. Will Dyke find redemption, or is it too late for forgiveness?